Welcome back to the Red Dice Diaries. I'm your host, John, and today I'm going to be talking about reasons for telegraphing the final session of your RPG campaign. I recently had the good fortune to play in the epic finale of Johanne Pavela's long-running Burning Wheel campaign, Chronicle of the Crowns. The actual play videos of the sessions, all 36 of them, are available on my Twitch and YouTube if you're interested. The game started in July 2021 and weekly sessions were ran for almost a year. This is no small achievement as far as running a long-term game goes, especially with all the real-world stuff that's been cracking off in the meantime. What started off as a simple game telling the story of a sorcerer, a dwarf and an elf seeking to retrieve a magical crown blossomed into Matthew's character Cameron becoming a prophesied king, characters leaving, new characters joining, and a suitably climactic finale. At the time of recording, we played the last session a couple of days ago. Normally we run on Thursday evenings, but after a discussion with the group, we decided to do the finale on Saturday evening to give us more time to resolve things without having to rush. And the last session did not disappoint. I certainly had a great time and thought everyone involved was really on their A-game, so to speak. This got me thinking about whether letting people know in advance that you're heading into the finale in a campaign is a good idea. Now bear with me. In the Burning Wheel session we just played, we knew going into it that this was the last session of this long-running campaign, and I think that knowing that brought some great benefits to the session. Given that this game was moulded in a token-esque style, as seems to be the Burning Wheel default, we were all determined to make it as epic a finale as we could. Resources, in Burning Wheel's case Arthur and fate points, that we might otherwise have saved for a future game, were spent with merry abandon as we went for death or glory in the final battle to break the siege of Riethel and slay the undead abomination known as the Last King. This also had the advantage of making the final encounter more tense, because we'd not been saving all our resources for the end of the session. In the end, we were able to persevere and defeat the Last King, but it all hinged on a couple of dice rolls. Luckily, they went our way, but it could so easily have been very different. This made the final moments of the session very tense and nerve-wracking, as we waited to see whether or not the dice gods would smile on us. But with the blessings of the secret flame, our rolls were good. Now, I think Johannes' decision to move the finale to a weekend, and as I say, there was a group discussion around this, but obviously Johannes originally proffered the idea. I think it was a great one. After all, we weren't rolling up all tired from a day at work. I certainly had more energy, and I would hope that that showed in my engagement and enjoyment of the session. Because we didn't all have work early the next day, we weren't pushed for time and having to wrap up early, so we could take our time with things and not have to rush through them, allowing much more lore and NPC interactions to come to the fore. The break from the normal format also made the finale seem more like a special event. As well as getting a cheeky extra session in during the week, always a good thing, the fact that we'd agreed to meet up outside of this normal schedule gave a certain something extra to the session, in addition to the other benefits I've just discussed, and that just helped make it feel more epic. Having a defined end to the campaign also gives the GM a chance to reveal some of the stuff that we maybe didn't do or could have done during the game, and also for us to do epilogues and tie up this chapter of the game. That's not to say we couldn't go back and revisit that world later. In fact, I hope we do. But this chapter of the story and these characters has now been resolved. Any games played in future would be new stories and adventures with different characters and icy group dynamics in the spotlight. Another benefit is that wrapping up the campaign at a conclusive point means the GM has time to take a step back, have a breather, and take a little break to refresh themselves before jumping straight into their next game. After all, we all know that life and other things can all sap our energy and enthusiasm. It can be difficult to maintain those high energy levels if a game continues on without a foreseeable end. Now, Johannes did a great job of keeping the excitement and adventure going, but even the most stalwart of GMs need a bit of time away every now and again. Hell, I know I do. But all of this has got me thinking about my own Smoke and Snow Old School Essentials campaign. After all, we started playing it in August 2020, and we've been running bi-weekly sessions for nearly 2 years. There's been about 45 sessions in all. We've had a couple of players who've had to leave the game for various reasons, and a couple of new ones join. The game started off as an open-world hex crawl focused on reclaiming a continent that was the homeland of humanity, once shrouded by ice but now habitable again. Over time, perhaps influenced by Johannes' campaign, but also obviously by player actions, it has become focused on an attempt by the party to retrieve 3 magical swords or god blades, these being the Sun Sword, Blade of Law, currently possessed by Weimar Lonegrove, Johannes' character, the Green Blade, Blade of Neutrality, currently possessed by Malcolm Harp, Rob's character, and the Night Blade, Blade of Chaos, once held by an ex-PC turned NPC, and now held by one of the game's main antagonists, an ancient vampire known as the Crimson King. We've had various adventures revolving around the swords, and the PCs are currently racing, at the time of recording, to confront the Crimson King in the frozen castle where he is bound by ancient magics. The players have conjectured at various points, both in and out of character, about what might happen if the swords were combined, but they've had little time or opportunity to test their theories. Since the game has become more about the swords, the focus of it has narrowed somewhat, and to me it feels as though this campaign is on the final stretch, to use racing terminology. We're not in the last few sessions just yet, and depending on player character action, there may be a number of sessions before we're ready to wrap up. But I definitely feel that once the matter of the swords is resolved, that will probably be the end of the campaign. Now, following on with the experience with Johannes' Burning Wheel game, I'm definitely planning to let the players know this in advance, for the reasons I've outlined earlier. Don't get me wrong, once the OSE campaign wraps, I'm probably going to run another campaign, whether it's OSE again or something else, I don't know yet, and I might run something a little shorter before jumping into the next big campaign. But whatever the next big campaign I run will be, I'm keen to keep to the same schedule and maintain as many of the player group as I can, since it seems to be working really well and they're a great group of players. But I definitely think letting them sort of know in advance that we're in the final stretch, as it were, is a good idea. So what are your thoughts on telegraphing the final session of a long-running campaign? Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's a bad idea? Do you like finite length campaigns, or do you prefer something that just sort of rambles on a little bit? And that's not to say that's a bad thing, you know, different strokes for different folks, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this and what sort of campaigns you prefer. If you'd like to get in touch and let us know, maybe be featured in a future voicemail response episode, you can do so in a number of ways. You can drop us a voicemail using either SpeakPipe or Anchor, and there'll be links to that in the description of this show, or you could send us an email to rddrpgpodcast@gmail.com. So until we see you again, take care, stay safe, and whatever you're playing, have fun.